When Theo first asked me to pretend to be his boyfriend, I thought he was messing with me. The guy had a reputation for sarcasm so dry it could sand down wood, so I waited for the punchline. But it never came. We were standing outside our usual post-work coffee spot. Him sipping some overly complicated oat milk thing, me nursing a cold brew, when he just dropped it. "So, would you pretend to be my boyfriend this weekend?" he said, as casually as asking me to pass the salt. I blinked. "Come again?" He leaned against the brick wall behind him, one hand in his hoodie pocket, eyes on the cars rushing past us. "For my sister's engagement party. Everyone's expecting me to bring someone. My mom's been riding my ass about not dating, and I may have implied I was seeing someone, and then I may have accidentally used your name." I stared at him. "You told your mom we were dating?" "I didn't think she'd take it seriously," he said, laughing nervously. "But now my entire extended family thinks I've got this amazing boyfriend who works in publishing and makes me less of a grump." Her words. I should have said no, I really should have. But there was something in the way he asked, half desperate, half embarrassed, that made me hesitate. Theo wasn't the type to ask for favors. In fact, we weren't even that close. We worked at the same company, different departments, ran into each other at the coffee machine, shared the occasional sarcastic comment during all-hands meetings. We had mutual friends, and the kind of chemistry that hovered just below flirtation. The kind that made you wonder sometimes, but never enough to actually test it. Still, I wasn't immune to how hot he was. Tall, lean, sharp cheekbones, the kind of brooding expression that made him look like he was always halfway into a meaningful conversation, or ready to ruin your life with one smirk. Not that I had thought about it much, or Googled his Instagram late at night. Twice. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You want me to show up to your sister's engagement party, meet your entire family, and pretend to be your loving, devoted boyfriend? That's the gist, yeah. For how long?" "Just a weekend. Friday through Sunday. You'd get free food, a nice Airbnb, and the eternal gratitude of a man on the brink of disownment." I crossed my arms, pretending to think about it. "What's in it for me?" Theo grinned. "Besides my eternal gratitude, I'll do your department's quarterly slide deck. The one your boss makes you color code like a psychopath," I groaned. "Ugh, you drive a hard bargain." "Come on, Dylan. You're a writer. This is just performance. Fiction. I should have known better." But I said, "All right, I'll be your fake boyfriend." Friday came faster than I expected, and before I knew it, I was in Theo's car on the way to New Hope, a small-town haven of wine moms and overpriced antique stores where his family had rented out a bed and breakfast for the weekend. The drive was mostly quiet, save for Theo giving me a rundown of his family's dynamics like I was about to enter a war zone. His sister, May, was the golden child, engaged to some finance bro who sounded like he owned more vests than shirts. His mom was intense in the "why aren't you married yet" way. His dad was quiet, his cousins nosy, and his grandmother still thought gay meant happy. "And you're sure they know I'm a guy?" I asked, half joking. "Pretty sure," he said, adjusting the AC vent. "I might have sent a photo of us from the office party." I turned to him. "That photo? The one where you have your arm around me and I look like I'm about to propose?" He smirked. "It's very convincing." We got to the B&B around 3 p.m., just in time to be roped into setting up floral centerpieces and fairy lights in the backyard. His mom, a petite woman with steel-colored hair and eyes that missed nothing, pulled me into a hug almost immediately. "You're even more handsome in person," she said, beaming. "Theo didn't do you justice." I raised my eyebrows at him. He looked away, scratching the back of his neck. We spent the rest of the afternoon in a blur of introductions and family chaos. Theo stuck close, his hand brushing mine occasionally, his smile a little too warm for just pretend. At dinner, he pulled out my chair. Later, when his uncle asked how we met, he said, "At work, he was the only reason I didn't quit my first week." I shot him a glance. That wasn't true. We hadn't even spoken that first week. But the way he said it, something flickered in my chest. That night, in our shared room, I collapsed onto the bed with a dramatic sigh. "Your family is intense. They love you already," he said. toeing off his sneakers. "Yeah, well, I'm charming," Theo sat at the edge of the bed, facing away from me. "Thanks for doing this." I looked at him. "Why didn't you just bring a real boyfriend?" He shrugged, his voice softer. "Didn't have one, and I didn't want to go alone." Something about the way he said it tugged at me, like there was more he wasn't saying. I sat up, the room dim except for the bedside lamp. "Hey," I said. "You okay?" He turned to me then, eyes darker than usual, mouth set in a line. And for a second, everything felt suspended, like the space between us had changed. "I'm fine," he said, "just tired." I nodded, but I wasn't sure I believed him. The next morning started with the smell of cinnamon and way too many voices for 8 a.m. Theo and I stumbled downstairs to find his mom already orchestrating a full-scale breakfast operation in the B&B kitchen, dragging family members into her pancake assembly line with military precision. "You two look cozy," May teased as we walked in. "Late night?" Theo rolled his eyes, but his hand slipped casually to my lower back as we moved toward the coffee. "He hogs the covers," he muttered. "Liar," I said, elbowing him lightly. I knew we were pretending, but everything about the way he looked at me, soft grin, hair messy from sleep, hoodie hanging off one shoulder, felt a little too convincing. Or maybe I just wanted it to. We survived the breakfast blitz, and the inevitable questions about how long we'd been together, our lie, 6 months, how we met, truth, work, and whether we'd considered moving in together, I choked on my orange juice. It was exhausting, but also kind of weirdly nice. Theo was attentive in a way I hadn't seen before. His hand would find mine under the table, fingers brushing gently. He'd lean in when I talked, laugh too hard at my jokes, brush hair off my forehead like it was muscle memory. And every time he did, my chest tightened. We spent the afternoon wandering the local town square, quaint shops, cider tastings, and a lot of smiling at old ladies who thought we were just adorable. Theo held my hand almost the entire time. I told myself it was for the act. It was part of the illusion. But then came the photo. May was snapping pictures with her fiancé near a row of pumpkins, and she suddenly waved us over. "Get in here. I want one with you too." I started to say no, but Theo pulled me in, his arm slipping easily around my waist. We stood there, shoulder to shoulder, and just as May clicked the photo, Theo turned and kissed my cheek. It was quick, soft, his lips warm against my skin for maybe 2 seconds, but it short-circuited my brain completely. I laughed it off, but my stomach was buzzing. I could feel the spot where he kissed me long after we walked away. I stole a glance at him, wondering if he was just improvising, just leaning into the role. But his expression was unreadable. That night, back in our room, I dropped onto the bed and stared at the ceiling. "You're really good at this fake boyfriend thing," I said, hoping it came off light. Theo glanced over from where he was changing into sweatpants. Yeah. Very convincing." He pulled his hoodie over his head and looked at me for a second longer than he should have. "That's good, right?" I nodded. "Sure, just maybe dial it back with the kissing next time." He smirked. "Didn't know it bothered you." "It doesn't bother me," I said too quickly. "It's just the cheek thing caught me off guard." Theo didn't respond right away. He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees. "You looked like you needed saving from that photo pose." "Okay, yeah, I did. Thanks." We sat in silence for a moment. The hum of the room fan filled the space between us. Then, softer. "You're really easy to be around, you know that?" I turned my head to look at him. "That a compliment?" He chuckled, but his voice was lower when he said, "Yeah, it is." The room felt heavier after that. Not in a bad way, but like something had shifted slightly, tilted. And when we eventually climbed into bed, fully clothed, backs to each other, trying not to overthink everything, my mind wouldn't shut off. Not because I was uncomfortable, because I wasn't. The next morning, Theo's mom announced a family hike like it was mandatory military training. "I brought extra granola bars and bug spray," she declared, loading backpacks into the trunk of her SUV like we were scaling Everest, and not walking a mild incline in New Hope's most Instagrammed forest. Theo gave me a look over his coffee mug. Run now or forever hold your peace. We didn't run. Instead, we ended up in the middle of a sun-dappled trail, surrounded by loud cousins, an overexcited golden retriever, and May's fiancé loudly explaining the stock market to someone who hadn't asked. Theo and I trailed behind the group. It was peaceful in that kind of rural way. Birds chirping, leaves crunching underfoot, the occasional sharp branch reminding you nature didn't care about your good sneakers. "You're really doing this for me, huh?" Theo said after a while, hands in his pockets, voice quieter than usual. I shrugged. "It's not so bad. Free room, free food, light cardio." He looked at me sidelong. "I'm serious. You didn't have to say yes." I shrugged again, this time slower. "You asked." Theo stopped walking. I took a few steps before realizing and turning back. He was staring at the ground like it was personally offensive. "You remember last year," he said, "when I didn't show up to the office holiday party?" I blinked. "Yeah, people thought you were sick." I wasn't. He rubbed the back of his neck. I'd just gotten dumped. Realized I was more into the guy the first was seeing than he was into me. That caught me off guard. You never mentioned." "Yeah, it's not something I talk about, especially at work." His voice was careful, deliberate. "But I guess what I'm saying is, thanks for showing up for me now. I didn't really think you would." I wasn't sure what to say. So, I didn't say anything. I just stepped a little closer and bumped my shoulder lightly into his. "You're welcome, Theo." He gave me a small smile, soft, shy, the kind that made my chest do this slow, painful twist, and we kept walking. That night, after dinner and several drinks around the fire pit, everything shifted. May's fiancé decided we should play a game. One of those question things. "Get to know the real couple," he said, slurring just slightly. Theo's mom clapped, delighted. "Oh yes, let's see how well they really know each other." Theo shot me a look. I tried to telepathically signal abort mission. It didn't work. "How did you two meet?" someone asked. "Work," we said in unison. "Who said I love you first?" That one made Theo pause. He looked at me, eyes unreadable. Then, "He did." I nearly choked on my beer. There was a chorus of "ABW" and some clapping. I forced a smile, but my heart was thudding. Later, after we'd stumbled upstairs, I closed the door behind us and turned to him. "You didn't have to say that," I said, keeping my tone light even though my throat was tight. Theo leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "I know." "Then why did you?" He hesitated. Then, "Because it sounded better than the truth." I nodded slowly. "And what's the truth?" "I don't know," he said. "Maybe I just wanted to see how it felt." Saying it out loud. I swallowed. "Okay." We stood there, facing each other in the quiet. And then, without planning to, without thinking, I stepped forward. Just one step, but it was enough. His eyes flicked to my mouth. And in that second, the air in the room thickened, charged. I didn't kiss him. He didn't kiss me. But we could have. And that was the problem. Because it wasn't just fake anymore. Not for me. And I was starting to think, not for him either. The next morning was weird. Not because anything had happened. We'd both climbed into our shared bed in silence, backs to each other, bodies stiff, and careful not to touch. But something had happened, even if we hadn't acknowledged it. And now, the air between us was thick with all the things we hadn't said. I woke up first. Theo was still out cold, his mouth slightly open, one arm flung across the pillow we didn't share. He looked peaceful, softer than usual, the grumpiness wiped clean in sleep. And of course, that's the moment my brain decided to whisper, "You're falling for him, idiot." I got up and showered, hoping the cold water would do something to knock the thoughts out of me. It didn't. Downstairs, breakfast was already in motion. May cornered me by the coffee machine and smirked like she'd been waiting all morning to do it. "You and Theo are convincing," she said. I froze mid-pour. "Thanks? Come on. I've seen the way he looks at you. And the way you look at him. Either you two are Oscar-level actors, or this whole fake boyfriend thing isn't so fake anymore. I tried to play it cool. He's a good actor. So are you." Her tone was teasing, but something about the way she said it felt more pointed than playful, like she could see straight through me. Back upstairs, Theo was getting dressed, buttoning a crisp white shirt for the engagement dinner later, looking like every gay best friend in a rom-com that people on Pinterest make mood boards about. "Hey," he said without turning. "You good?" "Yeah." "You?" He nodded, still facing the mirror. "Just thinking about last night." I paused. "What about it?" He hesitated. "The game. What I said. About the 'I love you' thing." I waited. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable," he added. "It just came out." I nodded slowly. "It didn't make me uncomfortable." He turned to me then, really looked at me. No, it just caught me off guard." Theo exhaled. "This whole weekend is catching me off guard." There it was, the crack. I crossed the room, stood in front of him, close enough that I could see the faint scar on his chin. "So what are we doing then?" "What do you mean?" "This whole fake thing. It doesn't feel fake anymore." Theo looked at me for a long moment. Then his voice dropped. "It doesn't." And just like that, the tension that had been building all weekend snapped into something heavier. Something real. His hand brushed mine. Barely, but I felt it like a jolt. And for one stupid second, I thought he was going to kiss me. But he didn't. Instead, he stepped back. "We should head down. They're waiting." I nodded, heart sinking. "Yeah, of course." The engagement dinner was a blur of champagne, string lights, and polite small talk. I smiled and nodded through toasts and clinked glasses with people I barely knew. All the while, Theo sat beside me, close, but not too close, careful with every glance, every laugh. After dessert, I slipped out to the porch for air. A few minutes later, he joined me. The sky was clear, the kind of navy blue that only happens in small towns without light pollution. The air smelled like pine and citronella candles. "Nice out here," he said, standing beside me at the railing. "Quieter." "Yeah." Silence stretched between us, taut and loaded. Then he said it. Quietly. Like he'd been holding it in all night. "I think I like you." I turned to him. My breath caught. "What?" "I don't know when it happened. Maybe before this weekend. Maybe way before. But it's not fake anymore. Not for me." I stared at him, trying to process the words. "I didn't want it to get complicated," he added. "Didn't want to mess up what we had. But pretending just made it worse. Or better, I don't know." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "You don't have to say anything. I just needed to say it." And just like that, he looked like he regretted every word. I didn't let him spiral. I stepped closer, rested a hand lightly on his chest. "I think I like you too." His breath hitched. And then, finally, he kissed me. The kiss was slow. Careful. Like we were both waiting for the other to pull away. But neither of us did. His hands slid to my waist. Mine curled around the back of his neck. And for those few minutes on the porch, under a sky full of stars and the distant hum of family chatter inside, everything else disappeared. When we finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine. "I've wanted to do that since Friday," he whispered. I laughed, breath shaky. "I thought I was imagining that. You weren't." We stood like that for a bit, still touching, still holding on to whatever this was, until the door creaked open and his mom called out, "Dessert's up." Theo smiled, but didn't move. "I guess we should." "In a minute," he said, and we stayed. Later that night, in our room, the energy between us was different, softer, but charged. Every movement felt significant. When he tossed me a hoodie to change into, our fingers brushed. When he leaned past me to plug in his charger, I didn't lean away. We didn't talk about what the kiss meant. We didn't define anything. But when we got into bed, he didn't face the wall this time. He faced me. And when he reached out under the covers, threading his fingers through mine, I didn't hesitate. Sleep came easier that night. But morning ruined everything. We were packing up to check out of the B&B when I heard him on the phone. At first, I wasn't paying attention. I was in the bathroom, brushing my teeth. But something in his voice pulled me to the door. No, I didn't tell him yet, because it wasn't supposed to go this far. I froze. Theo's back was to me, facing the window. He was holding his phone low, voice quiet. It was just for the weekend. I didn't expect. He trailed off. I stepped into the room. He turned, surprised. His face dropped instantly. I stared at him. Who was that? He opened his mouth, closed it. Then, my ex. I blinked. Your ex? He reached out. Last week. Said he wanted to talk. I didn't respond. I didn't know how to. My stomach dropped. And now? He just called. Said he was hoping I'd come see him once I was back in the city. I waited. Theo looked down. I didn't say yes. I didn't say anything. But you didn't tell him you're with someone either. He winced. Dylan. No, I said, backing up slightly. This whole weekend, you kissed me. You said it wasn't fake anymore. It's not, he said quickly, but I panicked. I didn't think this would get real. I didn't plan for any of this. You didn't plan for me, I said, my voice lower. And now that it feels real, you're not sure if you want it. He stepped toward me. That's not fair. Isn't it? He stopped, hands at his sides. I don't know what I'm doing. That's clear. The air between us felt like it had been sucked out. The connection that felt so solid last night now felt flimsy. Fragile. I grabbed my bag. Where are you going? He asked. Downstairs. Alone. And I left. The drive home was quiet. Not silent. The kind of quiet where the radio hums low, and you both pretend the tension isn't in the air between you like fog. Theo didn't speak much. Neither did I. Every few minutes I'd catch him glancing over at me, but he never said what I knew he wanted to. I kept my eyes on the road. It was a 2-hour drive back into the city. It felt longer. At one point, I almost asked him if he wanted to talk. But I stopped myself. I wasn't going to be the one to fix this. Not this time. When we got back to my place, he parked outside like always, turned the engine off, and let the silence stretch. I meant what I said, he said finally, eyes on the steering wheel. About liking you. I nodded, slowly. But that wasn't enough to tell your ex. He sighed. I don't have feelings for him anymore. I just needed to know for sure. That's what I was? A test? His head snapped up. No, God, no. You were never just... Dylan, I didn't plan this. I didn't expect to fall for you. I didn't even think you'd say yes to any of this. But I did. I know. And I kissed you back. He looked at me, pained. I know. And now what? He didn't have an answer. I opened the door. Thanks for the ride. He didn't stop me. The next few days were a blur. Work was hell. I couldn't focus. Every time I tried to write a sentence, my mind replayed that damn weekend. The porch, the kiss, the way he'd looked at me in the morning like it meant something. But the worst part was the not knowing. Was he seeing his ex? Was he ghosting me? Was it all just some beautiful, chaotic, stupid misunderstanding? I didn't hear from him for 4 days. Not a text, not a call, nothing. And just when I was ready to delete his contact and chalk the whole thing up to a romantic fluke, he showed up at my apartment. It was late, like borderline rude late. I was eating cereal in a hoodie, watching reruns of some show I wasn't even following, when the knock came. I opened the door, expecting a package or maybe my neighbor asking if I had spare batteries again. Instead, it was Theo. Hair a mess, hoodie wrinkled, holding a crumpled paper coffee cup like he'd forgotten what it was for. "Hey," he said. I stared. "Seriously? I know it's late." "No, I mean, you seriously just showed up here without calling after 4 days of nothing?" He nodded. "Yeah." I folded my arms. "Why?" "Because I've been trying to figure out how to say this. And I realized I'm just gonna screw it up anyway, so I might as well do it in person." I waited. He stepped inside without asking. I didn't stop him. "I didn't go see him," he said, turning to face me. "My ex. I didn't call him back. I didn't even text. I deleted his number on the drive home." That stopped me. "Why?" "Because the second I watched you walk away that morning, I knew," he said. "I didn't need to talk to him to figure anything out. I already had my answer." I swallowed. "And what's the answer?" "That I'm an idiot," he said, "and that I want you. Not fake, not for a weekend, not for my mom's benefit. Just you." Silence. "I don't know what this looks like," he went on, "but I know I've never felt anything like that before. Not with anyone. I got scared, and I let that screw things up." I stared at him. Then, quietly, "You think it's that easy?" "No," he said. "I think I don't deserve easy. But I'm hoping maybe I still deserve a chance." I took a long breath. Then I stepped forward. And I kissed him. This time, it wasn't hesitant, or quiet, or careful. It was real. The second time I kissed Theo, it felt different. Not because it was more intense, or deeper, or longer, but because there was nothing fake about it. No pretend script, no audience, no background music or fairy lights. Just us, standing in the hallway of my tiny apartment, under the buzz of an old ceiling bulb, and finally letting it be real. He kissed me back like he'd been waiting for it. Like this was the moment he'd been trying to get to all along. When we pulled apart, he didn't say anything. He just rested his forehead against mine and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. "So," I said softly, "what now?" Theo laughed under his breath. "Now I ask if you'll actually be my boyfriend. No fake labels, no performance." He looked at me, serious. "Just the real thing." I nodded. "Okay." His eyes widened, almost like he hadn't expected me to say yes so fast. Then, suddenly, "Wait, really? You thought I was going to make you beg?" He grinned. I was prepared to. I had, like, a whole speech. Something about destiny. You know. Grand gestures. "Save it," I said, tugging his hoodie. "You're already here." The weeks that followed were easy. Surprisingly easy. There was no dramatic tension, no overthinking. We started dating in the most low-key way possible. Staying in, watching movies, sending each other dumb memes during work hours. And sometimes I'd catch him watching me like he still couldn't quite believe it was happening. One night, I asked him why he hadn't said anything sooner. Why he waited until it was almost too late. He shrugged. "I think part of me didn't think I deserved someone like you." "You do," I said. "Even if your family's insane and you fake dated me into a mental breakdown." He grinned. "Worth it." The real test came 3 months later, his mom's birthday. I knew she'd invited both of us. I also knew she still called me Theo's sweet boyfriend in group texts. But this time, we weren't performing. Still, as we pulled up to the house and I saw all the familiar cars in the driveway, something in my stomach twisted. "You okay?" Theo asked as we parked. "Yeah, just weird walking into this knowing everyone thinks we're old news." He reached over and took my hand. "Then let's give them something better. New news." I rolled my eyes. "That doesn't even make sense," he kissed my cheek. "Didn't have to. You love me." I froze slightly. Then turned. "You just said that." He blinked. Yeah, I did. I laughed quietly. Took you long enough. He squeezed my hand. Love you. And this time, I said it back without hesitating. That night, his mom hugged me twice. May winked when Theo slid his arm around me. And when we left, someone made a toast to the couple who faked it so well, they actually fell in love. I didn't even mind, because they were right. We faked it, then we felt it, then we found it. And now, we weren't pretending anymore.